Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'm Deputy Mayor Trent Sullivan, and I'll be chairing tonight in the absence of our Mayor Stephanie Asher, who has been granted a leave of absence. Our council acknowledges the Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of this land, waterways and skies. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and we acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the greater Geelong community today. Now, this meeting is being broadcast on the internet, and the recording of this meeting will be published on Council's website. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our City Council meeting. It is great to have everybody back here in the chamber at City Hall with a healthy crowd in attendance. We welcome everybody here in person and everybody who is watching via the live stream this evening. There have been a number of questions submitted in advance for this meeting, with particular interest in the Bieber Environment Effects Statement. So we will hear from as many of you during Q&A time as we can. We also have a number of important items on tonight's agenda, so we'll begin straight away. And councillors, I will be asking for strict adherence to speaking time limits this evening. Tonight I'll go into apologies and leaves of absence. I ask that Councillor Asher is noted as an apology, as Councillor Asher has been granted leave of absence. Councillor Mansfield is seeking a leave of absence from the 19th to the 19th of April to the 13th of May 2022 inclusive. Councillors, can I have a mover? Mason, seconded. Councillor Harwood. All those in favour? Carried. Councillors, are there any further apologies or leaves of absence to be noted this evening? We'll move into declarations of conflict of interests. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. 2.4, Building Better Bike Connections. They're in a conflict. I work at the TAC who funds the bike lanes.
Noted. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Are there any other items of conflict to be noted? If any arise during the meeting, please let me know. Confirmation of minutes. Can I please have a mover to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of February 2022? Councillor Mansfield, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll move into public question and submission time. So the next agenda item is, as I said, and it is specifically available for questions and submissions rather than as a forum for discussion. In accordance with our policy, we set aside 45 minutes for question time, providing for each person to address the council with 3 minutes allocated. Questions and submissions provided in writing prior to the meeting will be considered first. After this, if time permits, everyone in the gallery will be given an opportunity to ask a question or make a submission. However, if it is in relation to an agenda item, councillors won't be able to provide you an answer, but you'll be able to hear us consider the item shortly after. For those who have pre-submitted questions but are not present tonight, responses to your questions have been published on the council's website and will also be emailed to you. It's also important to note that each councillor has read the questions that have been sent in. For tonight's meeting, we have received pre-submitted questions from 72 community members. More than 50 of those questions relate to Bieber Energy's environmental effects statement. Therefore, I will be asking pre-submitters of questions regarding all other subject matters to be heard first this evening. Those individuals are, and we'll actually ask if everybody here who has submitted a question on a different topic is here this evening. Can you raise your hand? Noted. Thank you. So I have submissions from Lois Newman on sex premises in City of Greater Geelong and forming an LGBTQIA+ advisory committee. Is Lois here this evening? I have a question from Claude Eagles about tree management, flood zoning and climate change. Is here this evening? Is he Claude? Please come forward if you are. No? Just put your hand up. All right. Dan Nichols has a question about mosquito management and Japanese encephalitis. Dan here this evening? Yep, please come forward, Dan. Please, please take a seat, state your name, and then please continue with your question.
Good evening, all. My name is Dan Nichols. My question to you, Council, is to ask whether you're concerned about the safety of residents with the increase in the numbers of Japanese encephalitis cases and the current Department of Health advice to avoid stagnant water, mindful of the stagnant stormwater basin that currently resides in Ashbury Estate and will remain there until at least 2020.
Thank you, Dan. I'll throw your question to the Director of City Services, Guy Wilson-Brown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Dan, for your question. It's a very important question. Yes, we are aware of the issue, and I'm pleased to say that we have a program in place and we certainly share the community's concerns. However, the type of the mosquito that carries the JEV is not common south of Central Highlands and are not known to breed in the Geelong region. The areas with the largest populations of these mosquitoes are along the Murray-Darling River and surrounding river wetlands. However, as part of our city's mosquito management program, we will monitor known breeding sites and respond to any customer requests, such as yours, Dan. And I'm also pleased to let you know that our mosquito management officers are aware of the basins in the Ashbury Estate that you raised, and we will regularly monitor this site to ensure that there are no issues. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Dan. I have a Madison Lee Chalker here this evening who has a question about access to public transport and public infrastructure. Madison, please come forward. Wait for a table to be sanitised. Take a seat, state your name, and please proceed.
Hello, Council. Madison Lee Chalker. I'm currently a resident of Ashbury Estate. My question is, currently people who need to access public transport are required to walk along the roadside of Horseshoe Bend Road and Boundary Road. Does the City of Greater Geelong share the concerns of nearly 400 Ashbury residents that lack of footpaths, especially in Boundary and Horseshoe Bend Road, means there is a total unacceptable safety risk for children who need to access their schools and need to catch public transport buses or attend Iona College? What does the Council plan to do to rectify this to ensure safe and easy access to public transport for school children?
Thank you, Richard Madison Lee. I'll ask our Director of City Planning and Economy, Gavin Smith, for a response.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Madison Lee, for attending and asking the question out. The safety of all residents of Greater Geelong is our highest priority. Ensuring the safe footpath access is an integral part of the network in keeping residents safe. Infrastructure development, including footpaths in Armstrong Creek growth area, are a condition of the developer planning permits. Footpaths for Boundary Road and Horseshoe Bend Road are to be constructed by the developers as conditions of their planning permits. And Iona College is required to construct a footpath along its property boundaries as per their condition of its permit. However, the time of this work is dependent on the college itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison Lee.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I hate to interject. Modern technology. I've got a message from a community member suggesting that the audio streaming is extremely poor and there's a lot of interference on this. I don't know if we can have a look. And it sounds like Councillor Maloney is saying the same.
Okay. I'm sure the team will take that on board, but if we make sure as well that all councillors and members of the community are speaking as closely in the microphone as possible, we'll do our best to rectify that issue. All right, now I have a question now from Kimberly Dubberly in regards to the Horseshoe Bend Precinct development and contributions plan. Kimberly.
Kimberly Dooley, and I've got a couple of questions regarding the Ashbury development. So nearly 400 Ashbury residents signed a petition voicing their concerns over the lack of promised infrastructure in the Ashbury development. Part of this infrastructure is the active open space, inclusive of 2 ovals, 2 netball courts, 2 bowling greens and a multi-purpose pavilion, which was promised to residents at the point of sale with the impression that they would be delivered soon. the trigger point in the Horseshoe Bend Precinct development contributions plan for this infrastructure was 2,000 dwellings. At June 30, 2021, there were 2,600 residential lots. We recently found out the timeline means these facilities will not be delivered until 2028 and will not even be designed prior to 2024 when the land is vested to council. Will the City of Greater Geelong hold the developer, Dennis Family Corporation, to account over the delivery of infrastructure which was promised to residents when they purchased land, and bring these developments forward to meet the needs of the rapidly expanding community?
Thank you for your first question, Kimberley. Gavin Smith, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Kimberley. And again, we're sorry that if community members from developers or otherwise is not meeting your expectations. What I can confirm, and I know you're aware of some of this, but Council is responsible, of course, for the delivery of the acting open space network within Armstrong Creek growth area. To help us prioritise infrastructure throughout the region, we have infrastructure prioritisation program to identify when the infrastructure is required in the context of the whole growth area. Where barriers to delivery are identified, we work to remove those barriers, and we're active in that space. We can't speak to representations made by the developer, as you know, and appreciate all their representatives. The active open space, though, within Ashbury Estate will be delivered in the shortest time possible with the constraints that are applied to that land. The land has not been developed, has not been vested, to council by the development, and there is currently a temporary drainage basin on the site, as you're aware. It's designated for open space. This interim drainage basin will be removed once permanent drainage infrastructure is being constructed, and that's estimated to be completed mid-next year. The necessary land acquisition process related to the delivery of the permanent drainage infrastructure has caused delays to date. Removal of the temporary drainage basin from the active open site will take at least 6 months. Once it has been removed, the land can be surveyed and design can commence. Based on these timelines, expected delivery, as you mentioned, is in around 2028. The developer is involved in this process and fully aware of the steps and the works involved to progress all these activities. Thank you.
I believe you have a second question, Kimberley.
Yeah, so it follows on from that answer, I guess. So Ashbury has as an out-of-sequence development, and that this is the reason presenting significant barriers to the infrastructure being delivered. However, it was Council that granted permission for the developer to create the temporary stormwater retention facility and to build out-of-sequence. Why is it allowing Dennis Family Corporation, the developer, to continue to expand the estate without first having to deliver the required drainage facility to meet the current needs of the houses and to be able to deliver that infrastructure as promised to the residents at the time of land sale?
Gareth, please.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thanks, Kimberley. Yes, the interim basin was designed to enable the developer to deliver a maximum amount of hectares and is still operating sufficiently in accordance with the planning permit. The planning permit, though, has been capped at the development at a maximum developable area, and development must stop if the cap is reached, unless the ultimate drainage infrastructure, the outfall into Sparrowvale wetlands, is in place. The developer is therefore a key interest to ensuring the ultimate drainage outfall at Sparrowvale wetlands is in place as soon as possible to allow them to progress as well.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Kimberley. I have a Yvonne Keowen, who has a question about the City of Greater Geelong Urban Foresting Strategy 2015 to 2025. Is Yvonne here this evening? I have Yuan Nal Dikoka in regards to tree management, 1 million trees project. Please.
Good evening. My name is Jean Nel de Kwikker. I have 3 questions. First of all, congratulations on the launch of the tree database. It's very helpful. The database lists a yellow gum for 54 Barrable Road. It describes both the tree health and structure as good. However, that tree was removed a couple of years ago. Can the council clarify why the tree was removed?
John, I'll put that to our Director of City Services, Guy Wilson-Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jean, for your question. I will say as a general comment that we have a team of qualified arborists and that we only remove trees on the basis of that tree being a danger or unhealthy. And that was the situation in this instance. So following an arborist assessment identified that yellow gum had extensive decay within the trunk, that it impacted the health of the tree to the extent that the tree was in decline and considered unlikely to recover. And we will update our database accordingly. And thank you for bringing this to our attention.
You go. John, I believe you have further questions?
During the February 2022 council meetings, the responses indicated that the city is in the early planning stages of developing a significant tree register, subject to funding in the 2023 budget, and that the time frame for implementation is subject to funding. Can the council confirm whether a request for funding to implement a significant tree register as per Objective 4 in the 2015 Action Plan was submitted for consideration in the 2016-17, 2017-18, 2018-19, 2019-2020, 2020-21 or 2020-22 City of Greater Geelong budgets?
Director Wilson-Brown.
Yeah, and thank you again for your question. You're quite right. An action to develop significant tree register is part of the urban forest strategy, and we've got 10 years and we've got that plan. I can't say for certain whether or not it was part of all those budgets you've just mentioned, but certainly it has been submitted on a number of occasions in previous budget years, but I suspect you are correct. And once again, it will be submitted for this year's budget as part of Council's consideration for the 22-23 budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council adopted the Environment Strategy 2020 to 2030, supported by a 2-year action plan in September 2020. The action The 2020-21 budget allocated $100,000 to program planning of the 1 Million Trees project. As per...
Apologise, that is up to the 3 minutes. However, we have received your question, so Director Robin Smith will provide a quick answer for you.
I'm sorry. I thought it was 3 minutes per question.
I'm afraid it's 3 minutes per submitter, per questioner. So if you're happy to wait there, we do have a response prepared for you. We just have to do it succinctly.
Can I just read my question aloud? Otherwise, it won't appear in the minutes.
Is it close to the end of it?
Yeah.
Please continue. We can go over slowly.
However, the 2021 budget does not mention the tree project, nor does it appear in the 2021 to 2024 or 25 budget documents. I want to know, can the Council confirm whether the planning has been completed and if so when, and whether the Council has received and considered a report on the planning process, and if so, how can residents access the report? Thank you.
Always thank you. If you wait there a moment, we have Director Robin Stevens to answer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. So the 1 Million Trees planning project, as you point out, was funded in the 2021 council budget. However, the project was not commenced within that financial year. The project funding has been carried forward to this current financial year's budget, and a project brief is currently in preparation. It's anticipated that the project will commence within this financial year and be completed early in 2023. When it's completed, the report will be accessible to the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I have questions here from a Barb Sheehan about tree management. Is Barb here this evening? If not. I've been notified that I have been notified that you would be speaking on their behalf, so yes, thank you. We'll have that noted. All right. A Bernice Davies in regards to social housing and the Belmont Scout Hall. Is Bernice here today? not, I'll go down to Louise De Coca in regards to Planning Committee, Annual Review and Tree Management.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I note from the Planning Committee Annual Review 2021 that of the 2,147 planning permit applications that were lodged with the city, that the Internal Decision-Making Committee only considered 56 of them. Now, that committee, according to your papers, was established to provide oversight of officer recommendations. I'm going to summarise in view of time constraints, but essentially it's a very small sampling for oversight functions, plus it's skewed because this committee only receives and looks at refusals, not approvals, and furthermore only at others that may have received 6 or more objections. The objections sound fair, but as community, we're looking at a number of applications where the initial applications looked good. Something happened in the process, and what came out on the other side, we would have objected against had we known. But the process kind of goes dark. We see the application advertised, and then it disappears. Given that we live in a digital age, can we ask for improved processes? Firstly, will the Council enable the DNC to have effective, full oversight over officer recommendations of approvals? And secondly, will the Council enable the community to have improved oversight? Firstly, by publishing not only the initial public application documents, but also the officer recommendations and permits, and allowing us digital access to such documents, and if not the current practices are, we can come here and view them, but we're not allowed to copy them using modern means. We have, as in the 19th century, have to note it down. And any notes are, of course, not necessarily accurate and open to challenge. So, my first 2 questions, would you like me to, the second one goes on to the tree canopy.
You ask all your questions first, and then I'll have directors respond.
Right. Again, I want to congratulate and echo the congratulations on the new tree data that's been made available, that you've had since 2014. Now, one thing that is noticeable, even without the data, is if you go, if you travel through Geelong streets in established neighbourhoods with old trees, you will see gaps in the tree canopy. And those gaps show a correlation with developments, especially in the past 20 years. So the question is, can the Council explain that correlation and where it removed trees at the behest of the developer? Why have they not worked with the developer to have that tree replaced to preserve the treescape of our streets? Thank you, Mayor.
I'll ask Director Gavin Smith to respond, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and nice to see you again. Thank you. And for your questions. So, firstly, in relation to the decision-making committee, so that was a committee actually instigated by officers and an officer recommendation, not cancel, but it does review all significant applications that are not heard by the planning committee. And it was focused always to be on a particular number of objections or those that were proposed to be refused. Really importantly though, all other applications are reviewed by a team leader or coordinator with over 15 years experience before a decision is made. No officers can make a final decision on an application that they have assessed. So there is oversight to all applications. Relation to question 2, around access to information, all applications that are being advertised go on the City of Greater Geelong website, along with our planning register, under the Planning and Environment Act. Applications are required to be advertised for 14 days. We leave applications on our website for 3 weeks. Under the Act, applications can be viewed by the public during the process of an application. Outside of the advertised period, the information can be viewed in person at Brougham Street in our offices. Once a decision is made and any appeal rights completed, a file is then considered closed. Community members can still view a copy of the permit from from a closed file at our Brougham Street offices. If a customer requires a copy of any information from a closed file, this needs to be applied via the City's Freedom of Information process. This is in line with recent privacy requirements to ensure that any owner's consent is granted where required and personal information removed where required. So I think we find it's more of a privacy change that's occurred in recent times. And then just in relation to, I think, your third question that you had as well, in regarding the correlation around the street tree issue you raised. So any street tree that is removed has been agreed to by our tree management team, and Guy touched on the qualifications of those before. Before a tree is removed, an offset payment based on the size and health of tree being removed must be paid to the city. The street will then be the street tree will then be replaced by the city, sometimes in an alternate location due to crossovers, extra power lines that could be impeding replanting that area. Replanting only occurs during the April to September to ensure the best survival rates of the street trees. Thanks again.
I have a question here from Katerina Larissa Istepsikia in regards to the Highton Village and tree management. Is Katerina Larissa here? If not, yep, please, come forward. Apologies. Just, you can just state your name and please proceed with the question.
Good evening, everybody. So my first question, what did council do to protect Highton Village as it is?
Maybe best if you read out both your questions and then I'll have the director respond to them both at once. That's okay?
Next question, okay. What did council do to protect trees in Geelong?
Thank you for your questions. I'm going to have Director Gav Smith read out the answer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Katerina, for the questions. There's no proposal to remove trees in the final Highton UDF design framework, I should say. So that's not proposed for those trees to be removed in that current form. With regard to the second question, our tree management policy provides a framework for the management of trees within the City of Greater Geelong. It establishes when we will plant, prune or remove a tree and what measures must be undertaken to protect and enhance the tree population. The City manages hundreds of hectares of conservation reserves, and to protect trees we undertake extensive pest plant and animal control, vegetation works and fencing of reserves to protect these trees. We also construct path networks through our reserves to ensure trees are protected. Our officers also investigate where vandalism of any trees occur. Thank you again for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Deputy Mayor, I ask a question of Gareth with regard to the previous question.
I'll allow it.
With regard to Louis de Coker's question before about the tree at 54 Barrowell Road, that tree removed when state government appointed administrators were in, Gareth?
I would have to take the question on notice. Sorry, Councillor Nelson, I couldn't confirm that.
I just googled it. I note the development behind it was the one approved by state government administrators. So I just want to know if the tree was removed around the same time.
Yeah, apologies. I have to take it on notice and get back to you on
Thanks,
that.
Gareth.
Thank you.
All right. I have a question from Brendan Hunt on social housing in the Belmont Scout Hall. Is Brendan with us this evening? Not. Kylie Gross on social housing, Belmont, open space. Kylie here this evening? No. I have a question from Bill Marshall in regards to planning and developments, Highton. Bill, please come forward.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to ask the question. My name's Bill Marshall. I'm a resident of Highton, the old part of Highton, just near the bowling club up near Shoeborough House. My question is this: given the significant public negative reaction to several multi-unit developments in the Highton area and the ongoing petition against the Highton Shops precinct redevelopment in its current form, what's the council doing differently now to ensure public opinion is respected at the planning review stage, rather than the public having to challenge these developments at VCAT at great cost, time and resource commitment, which, unlike the developers, the public generally is not organised or resourced to do? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Bill. For Director Gav Smith for a response.
Again, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Bill, for coming along tonight to ask that question. So in Victoria, planning for land use and development is controlled mainly through the Planning and Environment Act and the Planning and Environment Regulations. Planning processes are uniformly applied statewide. In the current planning system, the avenue for community members to appeal a council decision is through VCAT. Council highly values public opinion and is an important part of our planning process. However, we acknowledge that at times not everyone will agree with the decision. Our decision-making process continues to be transparent, we believe robust, and considers factors as such as the statutory requirements, environmental impacts, visual impact, and community feedback. Thank you.
Councillor Nelson.
Just to comment on that bill as well, as a local resident of Highton myself, I always advocate for my residents, and with regard to Roslyn Road, that got brought into council and we refused the application that went off to VCAT, and the state government approved that. The one down in Taylor Court in Highton Village, again, that was refused by council and then got approved by VCAT. And the one down in South Valley Road, the Ryman, that was refused by council, or council laws, and then again went to VCAT. So we are advocating for our residents and we will continue.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
You. Right, to all who have just put a question to Council, thank you for your participation. We'll now move on to questions received regarding Bieber Energy's environmental effects statement. Now, the Council has received a high volume of questions tonight regarding the Bieber Energy environmental effects statement. We've also received separate feedback from our Sustainability Advisory Committee. The following community members have submitted questions to Council regarding the Bieber EES, and I do require to read out everybody's name on here. Sonia Van Hewitt, Darcy Dunn, Sally Fisher, Yuan Nunez Ingleses, Karen Lamb, Bianca Kaushi, Tracy Gibbs, Mark Gordon, Fred Lang, Jara Gurry, Christine Aspland, Sarah, Ricky Bandicow, Jane Farley, Simon Chadwick, Robin Gardner, Rebecca Jarvis, Rosalind Ellinger, Pia Bernardi, Andrea Buckley, Anne, Jan Duncan, Angela Plunkett, Karen Stagniti, Gabriella Davies, Dr. Felicity Spear, Gemma Arnold, Elaine, Neil Plummer, Nicole Sabliak, Peter Sharp, Ishelle Carey Ashley, Felicity Crombach, Roman Geopat, Ingrid Hindel, Helen Reeves, Jessica Chapman, Kate Pediatis, Mary, Jake Bromeo, Dr. Donald Searle, George Robert Patterson, Sina Langellison, Susan Camilleri, Anthony Heath, Laura Nailsmith, David Learmakers, Maria Laird, Andy Brendan, Maddie O'Brien, Janet Macy, Jackie Myers, Andre Limsotin, Shannon Regan, Andrew Rivet, Caroline Danaher, and David Armstrong. So thank you everybody who has submitted a question for this council meeting this evening. Now it should be noted, before going to this, that council is not the decision maker for this process. However, as the level of government closest to the community, we do feel that we have an important role to share with the Inquiry and Advisory Committee a variety of views that we have heard from our community regarding this proposal. As such, we have made a submission to the IAC on behalf of the Greater Geelong community. The full submission is now available to read online at the Geelong Australia website. The City is also making a separate submission regarding the draft planning scheme amendment, which forms part of the project. So there's two submissions here. To make the best use of everyone's time tonight, we will provide a collective response to the questions submitted to us regarding this issue by providing an overview of the submission first. Two of our directors will speak to the 8 themes of the environmental effects statement, starting with Gareth Smith, our Director of City Planning and Economy. Gareth, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, sorry, I'll try to... Can you hear that okay? Thank you. So the first theme I will speak to is safety. So while Viva is an experienced operator of a major hazard facility, there has been considerable community feedback regarding safety. Chapter 12 of the EES provides an overview of the safety, hazard and risk assessments conducted so far. These assessments have identified hazards associated with the construction and operation of the project, and where appropriate, design changes or actions were applied to ensure that the risk was mitigated so far as reasonably practical. We have noted in our submission that there are substantial added risks for nearby residents, businesses, ferries, other shipping and community general health and wellbeing. We are also aware that there will be an ongoing work if the project moves into the detailed design phase to ensure the safety, hazard and risk assessment remain current. The City will continue to be engaged in these processes where appropriate. With regard to Theme 2, a local amenity, while we acknowledge the project location is within a developed port and industrial area, we note that it is also closely located to sensitive uses such as residential housing and school grounds like the Geelong Grammar. We have passed on community feedback that the proposal will increase the frequency of heavy vehicles in this area and increase both noise and air pollution in the area. Impacts on the visual amenity of this and surrounding areas has been raised, particularly with respect to the vistas from the Geelong waterfront, a major tourism destination, and the Spirit of Tasmania terminal, currently under construction. We have asked that consideration be given to local communities' use and enjoyment of the waterways and likely impacts on fishing, boating, water sports, and those flow-on impact to related businesses. If I call Guy up to read the next thing.
Just reinforce the point that the directors are currently reading out the word-for-word the submission that Council has made to this process. Please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be covering 4 sections. The first one I'd like to cover is sustainability and greenhouse gas emissions. In our submission, we have noted strong community feedback regarding consideration of how the project's greenhouse gas emissions will impact the broader region. We have also noted concerns raised by the community that the assessment and impact of emissions outlined in the EES may be significantly undervalued once analysed in a broader context. As noted by a number of the questions submitted to Council tonight, Council's Climate Change Response Plan sets a net zero emissions target for the Greater Geelong community by 2035, and this plan includes actions across a number of themes, those themes including energy, transport, education and waste. The net zero target by 2035 is consistent with best practice. However, this will require a whole of community response and urgent action to move away from fossil fuels and move towards renewable energy. The next element I would like to cover is the marine environment. We note that the proposed gas terminal is near a Ramsar wetland. The community has raised concerns and the City agrees that it's vital that the wetland and Cryobay fauna and flora be protected and preserved. We have also noted in the submission the community concerns regarding the release of chlorinated water into the bay and the impacts this may have on seagrasses, habitat and the nearby wetlands. Next section, land and the local environment. Whilst Viva notes that its goal is to avoid, minimise and or offset potential adverse effects on land, surface water, groundwater resources, native flora and fauna and their habitats, we have sought reassurance on behalf of the community that any impacts are to be avoided or minimised. Section, changes to refinery pier. As noted, proposed to the refinery pier. Whilst we note that dredging is a routine, we've included in our submission the community interest in this should be managed.
Director Carlson Brown. Director Gav Smith to read the rest.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And the second last theme is around social and economic benefits. The City welcomes major investment by Viva in its Geelong operations. Viva is a major employer within the region. This proposal
Councillors, Dr. Sonia Van Hewitt speaking. I'm a member of the Sustainable Advisory Committee that Council elected. My questions were answered in that summary, and I did read that this afternoon, and I do commend Council on having a good summary of the issues, but I am disappointed that the
Sorry, Sonia, we're just going to wait one moment. Apparently our audio has dropped out for a second. Just to make sure that everyone's saying is being recorded.
Yeah, just might adjourn for 1 minute to see whether we can get it back up.
Not being timed on that, am I?
We wouldn't do that.
We're not kicking anybody out. We're just making sure that everybody is heard and recorded. We predict that there's significant audio issues, and they're predicting 5 minutes at the moment. We'll still have to wait out here, but we are confident these issues will be resolved promptly.
Anyone take dictation?
We'll make sure that all the viewers at home can also hear as well. So we'll just make sure that everything is recorded. Right, everybody, we believe we are back online. The audio, unfortunately, for those at home is not... Actually, we apologise to everybody in the gallery and at home for that interruption. The audio is back online. Apparently, it is not perfect, but our team will continue on to improve throughout this. There was a 9-minute delay there in question time. I would add another 10 minutes for us to go ahead with that. Sonia, you have 2 minutes and 26 left in your personal question time. Please continue.
Reiterate, I commend Council on outlining the issues, but I am disappointed that Council didn't make a firmer stand. You didn't make a commitment. You hedged your bets either way and almost said, well, someone else can make the decision for us. I don't need to remind you that we are in a serious climate crisis and that gas is a fossil fuel, and that approval of this project, regardless of who approves it, anyone who shows a negative response to the project is helping our climate in the future, and anyone who is just sitting on the fence is actually condoning it. That's a personal point of view, but that's the way I read the submission. Thank you.
That's comment, Sonia. Thank you. Somebody else from gallery? Ma'am, at the back there. Doctor, please.
Yeah, that's my name. I'd just like to add some comments to the previous.
I would like to add to everybody that this is supposed to be question and submission time. If you could phrase it in sort of a question, it'd be much more appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, so as a question, having regard to the fact that AGL's gas project was rejected over in Western Port for environmental and safety reasons, why would COG be considering that now over here? And the other part of that question is that business leaders in Australia see the installation of gas infrastructure now and the idea of a gas-led recovery as heading for a stranded asset. So let's hope that you're not considering the notion for short-term gain that let's hope you're not considering that Bieber will be anything but a stranded asset.
We appreciate your question. This council is definitely not condoning all the decision maker in this process whatsoever. As we've seen by this letter, the submission that we have made, we are outlining multiple areas of concern which the community has raised to us. However, I will ask Director Gareth Smith to just give us an outline of the process and our responsibilities in this matter.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Certainly from a statutory process, and our role is there is a planning scheme amendment that's proposed as part of the proposal to occur. So the role we're playing in there is to provide advice back into the EES process or the state process to find actually review the amendment and actually its suitability if the development was to proceed. So that's our key role, that we must plan and must do that, in addition to what the council's submission that they wrote in today. So that'll be considered as part of the due process going forward up until the IAC. But certainly, I've got to say as well, officers have been involved in that for a couple of months to give advice to the state on how they might want to go around doing that amendment process if they were to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson wants to comment first.
Sorry, I've just got a comment from Councillor Maloney saying that the audio was unrecognisable, she's saying.
Might just pause for a moment on that. We want to make sure that it's recognisable.
Right, Linda?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor. It's extremely patchy. It sounds like there's a microphone being held outside of a car that's going down the road. It's very hard to hear. I can hear through this. If you want to mic up a Surface Hub device, that might provide a better solution in the interim until this is fixed. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
How's that? Councillor Maloney, can you hear us any better?
I meant for the live stream. I can hear you fine, but the live stream coming through. Okay.
Apologies, one moment. I believe we must progress there, unfortunately. Gentleman at the back, you raise your hand first for a question, please.
It is very bad to hear behind, and I think there should be some improvement. People sitting down here. I just came...
Oh, no, sir. Sorry, can we have your name, please?
Sorry, Robert Patterson, George Robert Patterson. I come from Ponlonside, on the right side, Fellows Road. I just came this evening because UNESCO have arrived in Australia yesterday. They're going to look at the Great Barrier Reef in the next week. The science is very clear about what staying below 5.5 degrees means. Staying below 5.5 degrees means no more fossil fuels. My question is, if the UNESCO classifies the Great Barrier Reef as endangered, will the Council acknowledge UNESCO's finding by having a vote on whether or not the Council is in favour of the new proposed Viva gas hub? The other thing I might say is that as of today, the City of Greater Geelong have not commented publicly, and yet we're way down the track with this new gas hub, and I ask if the council can have a better forum than just a few questions like this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. The City of Greater Geelong is certainly proud of its UNESCO Creative City designation. However, we will take that question on notice, as you made a few points of connection right there. But in terms of comment, the letter or the submission that we submitted today is the City's official standpoint in terms of the Council itself. And I do encourage everybody to, if you haven't as yet, to do go home and digest it in full. And your councillors are always available by email and phone as well to comment if you'd like to talk to us after that. Any other questions from the gallery? Sir, please at the back. One moment, please. No, sorry, so one member behind you, sir, and then we'll have you up next, please.
Evening, councillors. My name's Peter Dowling and I'm from Ward Street in Geelong. I've got 3 quick questions for you today, and it's basically around about the bike lanes that we've got. The first question is council aware...
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I might just step out because I've got a conflict, so just making sure.
Peter.
Question 1 is council aware that the 45-degree angle vehicular parking spaces that are in front of the new bike lanes on both sides of Jerringham Street appear to be non-compliant with the Australian Standard 2890.5, which is the on-street parking standard, and where they're non-compliant is in their dimensional sizes. The second question is, what is council's exposure to litigation if these vehicular spaces are found to be non-compliant? And the third question is, there are an awful lot of damaged wheel stops, particularly on the west side of Jerringham Street between Little Myers Street and Ryrie Street. And what is council's inspection and maintenance policy for maintaining or replacing these wheel stops? And what is the budget figures to maintain these spaces?
Well noted. I'll ask Director Guy Wilson-Brown to please come and answer a few of those questions. May have to take some on notice, but...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for your questions. I guess I'll speak in general terms. All our engineering designs, all our road projects, footpaths, bicycles, etc., we make best endeavours to comply with the Australian standards. There are situations where the road environment doesn't allow for 100% compliance with Australian standards, and we make best endeavours to do that. Whether that is the case here, I'll have to take that on notice, but certainly where the road environment permits, build our infrastructure to Australian standards. But thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll obviously have a very close look at it. We have recently completed safety audits and road safety assessments of all the bicycle infrastructure, which did include reference to relevant Australian standards. However, I'll make sure that the issues that you've raised are double-checked, and where necessary, we'll take action accordingly. So thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Here you go. Thank you, Peter. The gentleman in the Navy, please.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask a question.
Just have your name, sir. Sorry. Your name, sorry.
Andrew Broadfoot.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'd just like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask a question, which is in relation to the Moorabool Street new bike path between Fine Street and the Barwon River. Burtowit car park, located on the west side of Moorabool Street, is surrounded by high walls with restricted visibility when exiting into Moorabool Street until the front of a vehicle has extended into the northern lane of the bike path. A driver entering the busy street looks towards a traffic flow, i.e. towards the Barwon River end, and tends to only glance, possibly, in the other direction, and then only after entering the bike path. Thus, the chance of a vehicle colliding with a speeding southbound bike rider is quite significant. Recently, I nearly did, and being a bike rider myself, I'm very aware of the potential dangers. My question is, have council done a risk assessment at this point, And if so, what was found and what actions are proposed to mitigate the risk of a serious accident? If no assessment has been made, then will Council undertake to do so? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question, Andrew. I'll ask Director Guy Wilson-Brown again to come up to answer that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you again for your question. Obviously, the safety is incredibly important to all of us. In answer to your question, yes, we recently completed a safety assessment of stage 1 of the Building Better project. That safety assessment is still being reviewed by officers and is being presented to Council very shortly. There are a series of recommendations arising out of that assessment that we're working through, mostly of a minor nature, but there are some recommendations in there about improving signage, particularly to increase the awareness to drivers of vehicles coming south and northbound, as you've highlighted. So, in short answer to your question, yes, we're aware of the issue, and yes, we're looking at to improve the situation. But thank you for your question.
Yeah, do also our CEO wishes to make comment on this topic as well.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, it's probably timely just to make a bit of a statement about the bike lanes to make sure that the people who are raising these questions understand there has been a safety audit done, which we're very happy to share with the community in due course. So there's been an extensive amount of safety assessments both before and after the construction of Stage 1 of the Southern Link. Accredited road safety auditors, Safe System Solutions conducted a road safety audit of the design before construction. Findings informed the final design, and a post-construction audit of Stage 1 identified some minor remediation works. Officers identified and implemented further safety improvements such as line marking and additional signage at the Little Fines and Moorable Streets intersections. We also commissioned an independent bike lane safety assessment of 5 individual sites that spans from Mallet Street through to Little Fine Street from Dr. Cameron Munro of CDM Research. The key conclusion of the assessment is that the 40-kilometre speed profile significantly reduces the likelihood of severe or fatal injuries, and that there will be a period of adaptation required by all road users. The City will be implementing a range of measures in line with this report. When formally responding to the petition table that is likely to come up, we will share the report along with actions we are taking. We continue to monitor data and anecdotal feedback, including from the community and local police, to learn how we can increase safety for all road users where possible. What is important is that we'll be monitoring the bike lane over the coming 12 months and report to Council in December 2022 on the performance of the bike lanes in question. I also make a comment about safety measures for Stage 2. We have presented detailed layouts of the 3 proposed sections of Stage 2 of the Southern Link. They are in line with the concept plans adopted by Council in April 2019. There have been recent refurbishments or refinements relating to parking and lane widths. This has been done following a safety and design workshop held in February 2022. This workshop included representatives from the City and the Department of Transport, plus other independent experts who have assisted on the project, such as Safe System Solutions, CDM Research, Ratio and Stantec. Finally, in regards to a report that's later in this agenda tonight, the report and offer's recommendation is procedural in nature and in line with our procurement policy. The report tonight, if adopted, will give us the ability to run a select tender process for the next stage of the Building Better Bike Connection project. We can assure the community we continue to review these bike lanes, and if safety issues are identified, we will make sure that we review those and implement appropriate changes to the lane that will improve the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Earlier, some may have heard my alarm going off, which means we caught up to our 10 minutes of lost time. Then we had 5 minutes left to go at the start of Peter's questions. We now have time for one more submitter. This gentleman there in front of me with hands up with a sign would like to come ask a question, please. Sorry, we'll just wait 1 second for Councillor Grisbeck to return. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, valued councillors, I have a question to the councillor on the...
Apologies, sir. If we just get your name first, please.
My name is Roman Goppert. My question is for the councillor on the economy and development. In relation to the planned gas terminal. There is a state government planning law that does not allow any wind farms south of the Princess Freeway. So, in my opinion, a huge gas terminal right on our waterfront is much more unsightly than some wind generators. And I understand that a gas terminal would generate some employment, but at the same time, imagine how much local jobs would be created through a wind farm. And if you drive through Europe, you'll see that there's wind generators everywhere, and no one really complains about them. They're just part of the landscape, and they don't roast our planet like a gas terminal would do. So I would like to ask that councillor if he could please explain why a big corporation would get priority to build a gas terminal and a wind farm, which would create lots and lots of jobs and maintenance jobs, is not allowed in the same area.
Thank you for your question, Roman. I'll accept the question as all questions must be directed to the Chair. You will have heard our directors read out as part of our submission on this proposed project that there is a social and benefits paragraph in there. I'll just reread that to answer your question. That whilst Bieber is a major employer within the region, and this proposal, alongside with recent announcements regarding the investment into a hydrogen service station on its site, does give optimism for its future growth, we are aware that the current proposal does not have significant long-term impacts on local employment levels. Geelong, through Bieber and other investments, is very well placed to be a leading energy hub with a long-term focus on renewable energy industries and employment, as you've stated. So we thank you for your question, and we will have another written up answer sent to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Now, I thank everybody for your attendance, but that does conclude the time we have for question time this evening. Thank you again for the submitters who asked some questions this evening, and to councillors and officers for your answers. And very much, it's fantastic to have people back again in here asking questions in person, and we always appreciate the passion of our community. Now I'll be moving into the petitions section, and I'm aware of 4 petitions to be tabled this evening. First, Councillor Quintel. Make sure all microphones are working.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I've received a petition here from Anne Preston, and through our council system we received some 579 signatures to this petition, and then I was handed an additional 575 signatures tonight, equating to some 1,154 signatures supporting this petition. And there's quite a significant amount of information and commentary associated with the petition, but I will read the petition out. It states, Geelong Council, cease further works on bike lanes until after an independent safety audit.
Sorry, Councillor Quintel, I'm going to declare an interest.
Please. Councillor Quintel, I also note that when tabling a petition, we do have to give a brief assessment on it. We can't actually read the entire thing out in full. I believe we can, when tabling a petition, I believe the process is to give a brief assessment, overview of it, but I don't believe we can read it out in full.
Would have been halfway through it by now, but anyway.
Please, continue that.
Having said that, it talks about the council has been promoting the new major cycling routes, which were supposedly initiated for safer and easier transportation, particularly cyclists. But realistically, what this petition is suggesting is that it actually has made the roads more dangerous for everyone, and there's a huge amount of concern from residents associated with this and the rollout of the cycling lanes, and even more so the continued rollout of further cycling lanes. And so what they are asking is for immediately ceasing any current or future plans on bike lanes, and to commence an independent safety audit on the current and future bike lane networks and streets, and for the results of the safety audit to be made available to the public, and with all the recommendations to be brought back to the chamber for councillors to vote on.
Thank you, Councillor Quintel. We'll get Councillor Grisbeck back here. Thank you, Councillor. I also have one from Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. I have a petition here from Terence Underwood. This relates to a noise complaint from, there are 10 residents who've signed this, who've been experiencing significant noise issues from a local pub near their residence, and asking for council to look into this matter and assist them with the substantial noise issues that are impacting their quality of life at their residence.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Much appreciated. And Councillor Mason, I believe you have one.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. I have a petition from Peter Kidney of Indented Head, and representing a street of ratepayers, 13 signatures. These ratepayers would like the road sealed, Pigden Street, in Indented Head, and they claim that it would be not such a large task because all the curbing and channeling is there, but they do have a very bad dust issue. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I believe we have the fourth petition to be tabled by Sanya Van Hewitt on behalf of Darcy Dunn.
The petition is basically to ask that the City of Greater Geelong start considering it is bad, isn't it? Start considering the long-term effects of gas in the municipality, and to start banning gas infrastructure and any other gas-related infrastructures that are coming along. So I have this petition here. Who do I give it to, please?
Tanya, I believe that'll be collected by our Governance Department just to your left, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, have any other petitions to be tabled this evening? If not, we'll move into Section B for reports. Right. So the first item on the agenda we have is the Youth Council first report of 2022. To present the first Youth Council report for this year, I would now like to welcome Junior Mayor Jenya Rowbottom to address this meeting. Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janaea Rowbottom. I'm here on behalf of the Youth Council as Junior Mayor. To begin, the Youth Council would like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of the land, waterways and skies, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, councillors, council officers, Youth Council members and the community watching this meeting tonight. In the first Youth Council report, we introduced each of the Youth Council members, and as you would have read, this year's group come with a wide range of skills, passion and expertise. Over our first few months, we have already learnt so much. This year, induction took place over 2 days on Zoom. We heard lots of interesting and important information from a range of people across the city, including about our roles as Youth Council members, about governance, and about social media use, as well as learning how to effectively work with councillors. I would also like to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of the councillors who attended induction and to all of the staff who presented to us. During this meeting, we also heard from 6 Youth Council members who are nominated to go in the running for Junior Mayor position. I would like to congratulate all members on your speeches. It was wonderful to hear from each of you. Thank you to all members for casting your votes and electing myself as Junior Mayor and Angel as Junior Deputy Mayor. In our first meeting in early February, we worked in small groups to develop our Youth Council Charter, which outlines the expectations and responsibilities of Youth Council members. We then developed our Youth Council priority areas. Youth Council members considered the Mission Australia survey results, discussed Council's strategic documents, including the Clever and Creative Strategy and the Community Plan, and deliberated over areas previously outlined by past Youth Council groups to form our final 4 priority areas. After a lot of discussion, we decided on the following 4 priority areas: mental health and wellbeing, diversity and inclusion, healthy and respectful relationships, and environment and sustainability. We believe these 4 themes are extremely important to young people. For example, mental health and wellbeing is at the forefront with the pandemic, and we believe is the #1 issue of personal concern for young people. I'm sure every young person in Geelong right now would know someone or are themselves struggling with mental health and wellbeing. Environment and sustainability excuse me, is an issue most young people feel extremely passionate about and is causing high levels of climate anxiety. Young people recognise the impact of environmental harm and are greatly concerned for their future, which is why it is an important topic for us to recognise and work on. Healthy and respectful relationships is presenting an important issue to tackle with the increase in time spent on online platforms and on phones. We believe building respect and promoting gender equality is an increasingly important issue among young people. Lastly, we felt that diversity and inclusion highlights the importance of listening to young people and including them in decision making, as well as focusing our work effectively representing the diverse youth community in Geelong. Further, we would like to ensure the voices from marginalised youth communities are adequately amplified, including those of the LGBTQIA+ community, young people living with disabilities, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people, CALD young people, as well as the general community. Over the next 2 months, we will start to break down our priority areas into the topics we want to discuss more as a group and provide advice on. We are all looking forward to the next Councillor Connect mentoring session, where we will continue to learn from councillors and where we will discuss our ideas and get advice about our recommendations before including them in the next report. Further, at our upcoming meetings, we look forward to hearing from a wide range of guest presenters, give our opinions, and offer our advice so council and community work can include a youth's perspective. Thank you for listening, and I want to really thank all of you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much for delivering your speech, Jenya. The councillors and I certainly appreciate the insights of yourself and your fellow youth councillors, and we certainly look forward to you and other members for the year ahead. It is well noted, I believe, that Geelong Council was the first council municipality to instigate and create a junior council, and it's having ripple effects statewide with many other municipalities wishing to replicate. And with that, we'll look for a mover for the Youth Council First Report 2022. Move Councillor Mansfield, seconded Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Junior Mayor Rowbottom. That was wonderful presentation. Once again, I'm so impressed with the Youth Council. This is an amazing initiative. I was at a forum today at Deakin University where we were, and the theme was social equity, and one of the organisers actually made reference to some of our youth councillors who wouldn't have even known it, but they were overheard at another event having a chat with each other, and they were so impressed with the depth of the conversation, the maturity and the leadership that was being shown by those young people. And that wasn't even in a formal capacity, they were just out at an event. So you're a really impressive group. I'd really encourage everyone to have a look at this report, read about our youth councillors, and the issues that they've identified. And it's really interesting. Every year there's a slight variation on the themes, but the same really strong themes seem to come through every year. And I think that should be telling us something as the decision makers, not necessarily the only leaders in the community. Our youth council are leaders in their own right, but we are the ones who have been charged with making decisions at the local government level. And I think we should be listening to these young people. We have about 20,000 young people in our municipality in the age group that our youth council covers, so that's 12 to 17-year-olds. And, it's in those years where they're no longer children. We do a lot as council to cater for the needs of children, but they're not afforded the responsibilities and the rights that adults are from 18 onwards. In particular, they can't vote, they can't run for council. So, our youth council is a fabulous structure to provide some voice for young people, and they have many, they demonstrate that in many other areas. But I think it's really important. But it is incumbent on us as decision makers to listen to them. I think. Just to show how well that they're representing the needs of their peers. These themes that have come through around mental health, around climate change action, around equality, diversity, inclusion. These are the same sorts of issues that have been identified in surveys of young people across the whole country. So. These are critical issues for young people who are our future. The mention of mental health, I think, is a really important one, because as a council, we are not really in the business of providing mental health services, and a lot of the time we focus on health services, so health professional, see a lot of mental health, but a lot of what impacts on mental health is the broader work, is the broader aspects of society, and that's something where council can play a really critical role. Taking action on climate change is something that's really important. We've heard young people experience a lot of anxiety, understandably, about what their future is going to hold and the impacts of climate change. Making sure that we have safe spaces for young people to be. A lot of young people we've heard through the pandemic experienced issues with, the places where they had to be locked down were not safe. So making sure we can provide safe physical and virtual spaces for young people. Ensuring we support ways for young people to connect with each other in a meaningful way, and to connect with older, safe peers and mentors. And our youth development team do a lot of great work in that space. But that's a lot of that comes down to looking at what funding decisions and resource allocation decisions we make as a council, and ensuring we're thinking about young people and their needs. So I really thank our youth councillors for raising, for highlighting these issues again. I urge you to continue to advocate for your needs. If there are specific things we can do to help improve your mental health, and like I said, thinking broadly about what will support that. If there are other things that we can do to address those priority areas you've identified, or other issues that come up amongst your peers, make sure you raise them with us. And we do really try and ensure we capture them and continue to put them on our agenda. You might not see action straight away. I think we all around here understand that local government can be a slow-moving beast, but it is really important that you understand you are being heard, and your voice is so important to us.
Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and I fully endorse the words of Councillor Mansfield, and it's wonderful that we're engaging with our youth in this way and listening to our youth. And I've noted in our community there's a growing interest in youth leadership and youth participation, even through other youth groups. There's an interest in our youth council. And I do congratulate Youth Mayor Janaya Rowbottom for her excellent report, and for having been elected Youth Mayor, and Angel for her deputy role. and the other 10 youth councillors for their work their election and the work that they're doing. I note the immediate past Youth Mayor Elliot Nicholas. We want to say thank you also for the work done there. And one of the elements of the mentoring program might well be that the youth council, the current youth council, will be able to dwell upon the experience of the previous council. And I too note, as Councillor Mansfield mentioned, there's ongoing themes of interest, of very, very mature and thoughtful areas that keep coming up: mental health and well-being, minority groups, as Janaya mentioned tonight, the numbers of minority groups, environment and sustainability, diversity and inclusion, healthy and respectful relationships. These are ongoing themes and are going to be built upon from the recent work of the earlier councils. And I do actually want to applaud the work of the officers as well. Numbers of them, but I'll just name two now: Blake Edwards and Scarlett Quidland, who've done a lot of work in preparing induction programs and also the mentoring program. And I know that there's quite a thorough induction program. I wish I had have had some sort of experience such as this when I was a student. But the Youth Council members will engage with training with the Victorian Local Governance Association, the YMCA, to further understand the role of local government and allow them to expand their priority areas. And I've been really impressed. I've had one mentoring session with Councillor Sullivan with our Bellarine group, and we've explored quite a range of things. What our councillor... Oh, the bell's rung on me. I'm sorry about that. So we've discussed quite a lot of things about governance and the roles of councils, and I look forward to another excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors wish to speak on this topic? Councillor Murray, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I'll be short. I just wanted to add my support to the comments made by Councillor Mansfield and Mason. You can't help be impressed by the youth councillors, and they seem, I shouldn't say it, but they seem to get better each year. At least their presentation, the intellect, and the way they express themselves is very, very good. So you can all hold your head up high and be proud of what you are achieving. And it's a good point made by Councillor Mason. I wonder if federal or state politics would be any different if youth council was available all those years ago. Because certainly even the mentoring sessions, they challenge, the youth councillors challenge us as councillors, the way we look at things. So it's a great concept, great program, and congratulations on your presentation tonight, Nathan.
Well noted, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors care to comment? I'll throw back to Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you to my fellow councillors for your words. And look, I too would just like to echo my thanks to the youth development team for your outstanding work on this program. I think part of the reason it's gone from strength to strength is the amazing work you put in. So Scarlett, thank you, and Blake and all the rest of the team. It's a lot of work, but again, at this forum today, a question was asked about how places can have a youth council like ours. So, and I was very proud to be able to explain the program, but also highlighted that it's not as simple as running an election and putting 12 young people in a room, although I'm sure they do a brilliant job. A lot of support goes and all the work goes into making that program as good as it is. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. And with that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Item number 2 is dog control orders, Brimley. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason, thank you. And seconded, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Mason, please.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Back in 2019, we decided to hand over the management of Brimley Caravan Park and the surrounding foreshore reserves to the Bowen Coast Committee of Management. They will take over on the 1st of April 22, and so Bowen Coast Committee of Management will then take the lead in development of dog orders. Though the city will continue to be responsible for the implementation of these orders on behalf of the Bowen Coast Committee of Management, but of course the change of management, the new dog orders need to be formalised, and that's what we're doing tonight, just formalising this. So in the meantime, Bowen Coast and the city are engaging in a two-year trial of dog orders for the rest of Bowen Coast land, which is subject to a further review and engagement. All of this is yet to be finalised. So this proposed order would be temporary until these other orders for the entire Bowen Coast managed area are finalised and subject to a further council resolution in November 22. Both the city and the Bowen Coast agree that the orders in place should remain unchanged to be considered in a broader review of orders at the end of a trial later this year. Further engagement for a small parcel of land in Brimley, where dog controls have remained unchanged for many years, may confuse the community while this trial is underway. So I recommend we go ahead with this as proposed. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Councillor Aiken to second.
This is a procedural matter. The main decision was actually made by Council in October 2019 to pass the Brimley Caravan Park and the land that we over to the Bowen Coast Committee of Management. It actually occurs on the 1st of April. And, it's a procedural matter that we actually have to give them the right to actually undertake dog orders from the 1st of April. So this is actually no change. It's a procedural matter reflecting a prior decision that Council actually made in October 2019. And I look forward to Bowen Coast improving the Brimley Caravan Park and it being a very successful piece of our coastal area that attracts people with their caravans and attract tourists down to the Geelong area. And they do continue to allow dogs in a controlled manner at that site location as well too.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Any of the councillors care to comment? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Mason to close. Please.
Nothing further to add, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 3, we have sports lighting. Moved by Councillor Grisbeck, thank you, and seconded Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Change of pace onto sports lighting. This is a report as a result of a notice of motion that I took back in September, from my understanding. September last year. Thank you, Robin. This is in relation to asking the council to look at the policy change by which sports lighting is governed within the city. We had some consultants prepare a draft report which considers the implications of such a policy change, and this can be found sort of attached to this document. Benchmarking across 5 other LGAs was undertaken to produce this report, and they are within the report in the attachment. the options that were put forward at this point in time are maintenance only, which means that council will replace a light if it's out, and if something's wrong with the towers or the lights, they will look after the maintenance only. There's a second option which the report highlights around maintenance and capital, so that means obviously maintenance plus take on the responsibility of funding new and renewal of sports lighting projects throughout the year, and that would be on a recurrent council budget. And then there's the third Rolls-Royce option, which is about maintenance, the capital and the conversion of older style lights, floodlights, to the newer LED technology. Now, all of those options are available to council, and there are some different nuances in those options of which a report needs to be finalised to come to council. But to do that, we really need a audit of what we currently have within the city. So the asset condition, where it's located, does it work, is it new technology, is it old technology, what power is required to those particular sites. And in the absence of that asset data, we were unable to really make a full considered decision in relation to whether we do any of those options. So at this point in time, this report is coming back in an interim capacity, and we need to look at the level of illumination, for example. Is that the standard that we want going forward, and determine what standard are we going to put on the city for those particular lights. Lights are such an important, play such an important role in many sports across Geelong and the greater Geelong, and we need to consider those policy changes in that context about a lot of different sports. Do we make these lights a standard item when we put in infrastructure? For example, when we do a new development and there is a new sporting facility, does lights become a standard piece of infrastructure like the basketball rings or the soccer goals or the cricket pitch? That's where we're asking the city to go, and they've provided this report. So at this point, we'll refer sort of that opportunity to go through the budget, but at this point, I'm pleased where we've landed so far. We do need to do some more information to really make that policy change. So that's what this report is asking for, to make sure that we can get to the next stage. And we do know that we've had some issues in the past around theft of copper, and we have had some issues around lighting, being taken out by cars and things like that. So it is right that we do an audit to make sure we're getting making the right decision. Nothing further. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken, second.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Look, I actually want to congratulate and thank Councillor Grisbeck. She's actually championed this issue and brought it before the council group, and it actually shows how in touch she is with her local community, in particular the soccer community. What ultimately is driving this issue is that lights are no longer a luxury. Lights are actually a standard requirement that we have. And the reason for that is ultimately being driven by the explosion of female participation in sport, in particular soccer, AFL and cricket. And to maximise our investment in community sporting infrastructure, and to maximise the opportunity for women and girls to participate in organised sports, we have to have lights, because we have to share the facilities across traditional male users and now the explosion of female users that are occurring. And lights is a means of which we're doing that. Councillor Grisbeck has identified that and actually championed that lights now need to be part of our fair play policy. Lights and their maintenance need to be looked at in a fair and equitable manner. I suspect the officers aren't moving as quickly, and this report is not moving as quickly as Councillor Grisbeck would like. But I thank her for her patience, because it does have significant budgetary implications for council. An example is there is a budget bid for $300,000 to undertake an audit of every single light infrastructure and light globe that is in our sporting infrastructure that actually currently exists within the city of Greater Geelong. We need to do that important work so we can actually identify how much is it going to cost us and what is the standard levels we need to be able to ensure that lights are fully utilised and fully maximised in terms of participation. And we can only do that first by doing this extensive audit. So there is a $300,000 bid in this year's budget, in the budget coming up, and then it will have financial implications for the council if and when lights actually shift across to our flare pay policy, because at the present time they're totally excluded from it. So we will fix a cricket pitch, we will fix a cricket practice nets, we will fix football goalposts, we will fix and support other infrastructure, but we won't assist with lights. We actually put that back onto the responsibility of clubs. It is an inequity of our existing infrastructure and fair play policy, and I too look forward to it coming back to council, and I congratulate Councillor Gresbeck again and thank her for being a champion on this important issue.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors wish to comment? Councillor Kuntell, please.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yes, like Councillor Aiken, I also applaud Councillor Grisbeck for championing this initiative. And I know that Councillor Aiken and Councillor Grisbeck touched on a couple of these topics, but the one thing that I think that's important to consider here is that this is actually a smart investment in the audit. And the reason it's smart is because to maximise the utilisation of our current pitches and not have to continue to invest in more pitches, which inevitably we will have to obviously do as the games grow, particularly soccer, then we need to be able to use those pitches for longer periods of time. And what we're finding at the moment is that there are many pitches out there. Hume Reserve Pitch 3 is a perfect example in Bell Park, where you have to pull up stumps when it gets dark. So the kids can't continue to use those pitches. So what we're looking at then is developing more pitches. We've got the synthetic pitch out at Corio Leisure Time Centre, which is all great, but that's more investment, really significant infrastructure investment, where we could actually save on that investment by opening up the time slots that people can actually use these facilities. And one way of doing that is actually through lighting. So a really simple solution where we've tended to got it right with clubs, but there are a lot of other sports where we haven't got that right. And so it actually could be a strategic saving if we invest in the lighting. It'll give us a longer period of time where we can continue to expand on our current usage of current infrastructure and current pitches that are out there. So, yeah, very, very smart and very appropriate that Councillor Grisbeck has put this forward. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Kuntell. Any other councillors care to comment? Councillor Murray, please.
Yes, and I too congratulate Councillor Grisbeck on this. It's a very good notice of motion, and it's the first step, and very supportive. I look forward to where this recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Murray. Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you to Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Grisbeck, for moving this on. You've done a lot of work in the background on this. One thing that we sort of had briefly, had a discussion about, but this is I applaud what's being done here. I'm mindful that we currently have an issue with, keeping up with asset renewal demands already, and any move to increase the volume of assets that we manage as a council needs to keep in mind that those assets need to be maintained. They have a lifespan, and that comes with additional costs. So we need to be prepared if we are going to fund new infrastructure. We need to have a plan for how those assets will be maintained. And I think the audit that's been suggested here is one of the real strengths of this report. We need to have a detailed understanding of all of our assets across the municipality, so we know what the ongoing needs are, but that also needs to apply to any new infrastructure that we decide to fund. So, the cost of installing lights can't just be about that one-off installation. It needs to take into account the whole of life costs for that particular asset, and looking at other strategies maybe that we can employ to ensure that maintenance is undertaken. But I think this is a good step in the right direction around sports lighting, given we have a lot of those assets. But I am just mindful that we need to be thinking further ahead about what the commitment required of council is if we are going to be providing more sports lighting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansfield. Any other councillors care to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Grisbeck to close. Please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for everyone's comments. Thank you to Robin Stevens and the CEO, Martin Cutter, for their work on this. And also, you'll note that one of the resolutions is about authorising the CEO at some point, if required, to assist in any of those particular maintenance issues that we have across the city. The infrastructure grants program that we have at the city and has been taken up over the last 4 years that I've been on council by many of the lighting infrastructure. $350,000 is usually the amount that it costs to input that infrastructure into a current development. And I think, like Councillor Mansfield had said, the asset renewal part, I think there's a misunderstanding in the community at the moment about who has responsibility for maintenance as they stand. And we've got to be clear that it is clubs at this point in time that has responsibility for maintenance. And I think that's what we've seen in clubland, is that we're just struggling enough to keep players on the pitch, so to speak, and having an asset like lighting towers, maintenance of such can run into the tens of thousands of dollars. So I think at some point we're right around putting it on the asset renewal list, but also making sure that it is an asset of council when it is installed, and as such, that's what this notice of motion and this report is about, making sure that it becomes an asset that is maintained by council going forward. And I think when you think about what the leasing arrangements look like within a club, you often get lease for the oval, lease for the facility, and I'm assuming some sort of lease for the lighting would be appropriate. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Well said, Councillor Grisbeck. With that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Item carried. Item 4, we have tender T22 with, I'll wait for Councillor Grisbeck to leave the chamber. We have tender 220043, Building Better Bike Connections, Southern Link Stage 2. Other mover? Councillor Harwood, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Obviously, by having a number of the community here this evening making comment on our better bike connections thus far around the city, I guess it's sort of quite pertinent to have this discussion now about a potential further development of that bike connection, in this case to the Southern Link, which is stage 2 out through across the bridge, the Normal Street Bridge, and in the southern direction out High Street up to, at this stage, Roslyn Road, up in Belmont. I guess the underlying sentiment is no one's against improving the cycling connections in and around the city. That's a common theme. I think everyone supports better and safer options for cycling around our city. So what we've seen in recent times is quite a quantum shift in that particular space of providing what is best practice and world-class cycling infrastructure and protection of the cyclist. And I guess having seen that, we're able to sit back and reflect on that and I guess form different views and opinions now of, well, did we get it right? Has it worked as we expected? Is it what we expected? Has the cycling community responded in the manner that we thought they would? Has the general community and the users of other vehicles on the roads also responded in a manner that we thought they would? And the answer is probably not quite. In actual fact, we've taken quite a lot of feedback of varying degrees, but certainly a lot of concerns being expressed about stage one. So, and that was reflected in the very large petition presented this evening. And I dare say a number of other signatures could have been added to it over time. I think we've got a real opportunity here to continue the response to providing better and safer cycling infrastructure in the region. I think it's really just a matter of how we go about that and what we present as a result. So the opportunity that's presented before us is to approve an exemption from undertaking a public open tender process for stage 2, the Southern Corridor, but approve a market approach of a selected tender to ensure the suitable responses are sourced and that the value for money is being achieved. And importantly, note that through the procurement process, pricing for design options 1 and 2B for High Street Belmont section between Mount Pleasant Road and Roslyn Road will be sought. So it gives us an option to look at what that cost will be, first and foremost. We know predominantly what option 2B looks like, but it presents an opportunity for us to have further discussions amongst ourselves, but also with the community about what would option 1 look like if it was Sharrows, if it was of some other different ilk, to provide initial safe cycling options in High Street. And I think that's given us a little bit of breathing space in what has become an emotional and at times a little controversial discussion, which nobody wants. It's not what this was all designed for. So if we can give the community some comfort that we are listening to them, we do see issues that have arisen. I guess some of them are unintended consequences in some aspects of what's actually occurred out there. There have been accidents and there have been near misses, and we've heard this evening, and I do concur with some of the comments about some of the drivers that will naturally look in a certain direction for obvious reasons without consideration to what may be coming from another direction. So I think I support the recommendation, and as I say, I think it gives us an option to sit back and reflect on what's occurred thus far and what the infrastructure potentially might look in the future. I'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Mansfield, second.
I'll reserve my right, thanks.
Councillor Mansfield. Any other councillors wish to comment? Councillor Cantel.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, whilst I appreciate that the report's requesting that Council select a tender process for connections to Stage 2, being the South Corridor. However, it's very difficult for me to consider supporting this when we have so many issues, many being safety related with Stage 1 and so much community dissatisfaction, as Councillor Harwood has already alluded to. And as Councillor Harwood already said, let's get one thing straight. All councillors here and the vast majority of the community would like to see improved cycling infrastructure and safety for cyclists. However, there are differing views on what that should look like, and many believe that we've got it wrong with Stage 1, particularly in Jerringhack Street, Kilgore, Carr and Lurable Streets. And I have to tend to agree with that. Personally, I believe we made an error with Stage 1 in approving it, and the routes that we chose, and in my opinion, are wrong. They're in the wrong place. And just approving Stage 2 and this report tonight, which is the gateway to High Street, is only going to potentially give us the same unsatisfactory and potentially dangerous outcomes which we've heard so much about, including the petition. We're all aware that shortly after Stage 1 was finished, In Moorabool Street, we did have an accident with one of our community members on a bike colliding with a car. He was very fortunate to not have been seriously injured or worse. However, his bike was completely written off. And many riders have told us, through written correspondence and other, that it's only a matter of time before a cyclist is actually killed because of the intersections and the two-way traffic on those bike lanes. And in fact, only last week, I think all us councillors were written to by a cyclist, a regular cyclist that uses cycling for transport, that has said that he'll no longer use those bike lanes because of just how dangerous they are. And we also know how hazardous the on-street parking has become. We heard about that tonight. We've heard about it in written form and through dialogue from many community members, particularly with on-street parking now practically in the middle of the road, particularly in Jeringhap Street. And, we hear about altercations between drivers and vehicles occurring regularly. In addition, we've removed so much on-street car parking and introduced unnecessary congestion into our transport and connectivity network, particularly in the CBD. And this experiment, which I call it, and my personal view, is actually worked against everything that we were sold. And so what I suggest is that tonight we take a pause, we don't vote in favour of this report, and in fact perhaps we reject the funding from TAC or use it to resolve stage one, remove it or get other routes that will work, and we do not approve stage two because it's only going to give us the same outcome that we've already got in stage one and we haven't got that right yet.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any councillors wish to comment? Councillor Murray, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It doesn't surprise me, but I'm somewhat put out by the fact that we're actually debating bike lanes in Moorabool Street, Jeringhap Street, because this recommendation tonight has in fact nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them at all. In fact, this should be a procedural matter from a council decision made on the 30th of April 2019. And I believe that this council should respect that decision. So tonight is just about endorsing stage two, going out using the city's procurement policy. And I think we've softened a little bit by including options 1, because 2B was voted for in the chamber. We've included option 1 to perhaps soften that decision. So tonight is not about debating Jeringhap Street or Moorabool Street. It's just endorsing, and it should be about the respect of a prior decision, as Councillor Aitken said about the dog controls in Broomlea. This is a procedural matter about a prior decision. So it's not about debating it again what's happening with stage 2 to the Moorabool Street Bridge. So I'm supportive of this recommendation, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any councillors wish to comment? Oh, no, Councillor Aitken, please.
Hello, testing. Sorry, I apologise. I thought my mic had gone flat there. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Look, I was re-elected 4.5 years ago in October 2017, and I've spent the last 4.5 years observing the implementation of retrospective protected bike lane strategy in the city. In a layperson sense, the aim of the strategy is to improve safety for cyclists, enable alternative transport options to cars, and ultimately to increase bike usage in Geelong. And what I've witnessed over the last 4.5 years is, and the evidence is actually not meeting the aims of what's actually been put before us. Bike transport usage has actually decreased over the last 4.5 years as a percentage of travel. Cyclists are not being protected by our bike lanes that we're implementing, and in fact we're creating a false sense of safety by saying that all of these bike lanes actually are safe for the community. And importantly as well too, this has actually been a real policy failure of local government. The hatred that now exists in Geelong between cyclists and drivers and cyclists is shameful. And the bike lanes implementation have actually contributed to that failure of public policy. And an issue that's extremely close to my heart is that by building bike lanes in retail strips and service strips, we are actually excluding people with disabilities from those areas. And the committee that I chair for council, which is the Access and Inclusion Committee, have continuously said over the last 4 years that council needs to consider the impact it makes for those people with a disability that traditionally go to a retail and a service strip area, because the bike lanes exclude them from being able to access that particular area. And I was disappointed to find out that with High Street, there's actually been no disability impact study of the High Street proposal. And what a disability impact study is that you actually look at what is being proposed, you look at the access that disabled people currently have for an area, and you actually try to modify the design so that you limit the impact with people with disability, or you compensate other opportunities for someone with a disability to actually access this area. What the Access and Inclusion Committee keeps saying to me is that we are excluding people with disabilities by building the bike lanes in retail and service strip areas, and we can't ignore that. We also can't ignore that our officers have warned us, and they've told the council group that the disruption that this work will actually occur in High Street after the 2-year COVID period cannot be ignored. We cannot ignore that businesses will go bust during the construction period with the development of this High Street proposal. And it's naive of any councillor to suggest that it won't happen. It certainly will happen. I support that we should be proposing this strategy for a high-level review. We should be considering the impact of members. Yep. Can I have an extension of time then, please? Yep. If they're granted by the...
I'm afraid we can't.
Why is that? Because the council's made that decision if it's a formal request.
More request? One moment, I'll just seek advice. As I stated earlier in the evening, sticking to strict adherence to speaking times. What is in the chairperson is to maintain a time limit of 3 minutes per councillor. You've had 3.5 minutes. Can you please wrap it up in the next 10 seconds?
So I'll close up by saying we should be identifying a primary road network in Geelong which doesn't include bikes. We should be identifying safe bike lane routes without Geelong that don't have cars. We should be improving cyclist safety in those particular identified areas, and we actually need a public education program that needs to create respect by cyclists to pedestrians, respect by drivers to cyclists, and respect in Geelong that all of us need to share the limited opportunities we have. Until we do that, we are creating an absolute mess and will continue to create an absolute mess, and High Street will become the pinnacle that we'll be able to see how disastrous the bike lane protected strategy is in Geelong.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Nelson. Oh, sorry, apologies. Councillor Maloney.
That's all right, we can tag. Thank you. With respect to the concerns that we've heard from cyclists, I'm wondering what the mechanisms are enabled for reviewing the safety and the project's success by council and by the TAC who are funding this, and what are the critical success factors here? I mean, we've heard a lot from people who have had, as Councillor Harwood mentioned near misses. So with respect to this, what support are TAC committed to provide for us with respect to things like signage and education for drivers as we have these changes in traffic conditions and people come across them and don't know how to encounter cyclists? And also, what is happening with respect to driver education to incorporate cyclists' inclusion on roads? I'm wondering what the mechanisms are for reviewing this, because ultimately we want to see more people cycling around the town and to work, and we also want to see drivers inclusive of all road users, including cyclists. So I'm just wondering what elements are factored into this project so that we can proceed without having concerns that are obviously raised by constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. I'm sure we can get some answers to those questions for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, always difficult to do questions on the run, but obviously these bike lanes have been approved routes and support from the TAC throughout this entire process. The principal pedestrian and potential bike net was originally approved by the TAC, and we continue to work with the TAC to receive funding for these particular lanes. There's been support all the way through. Obviously, we're responsible as the builder of these bike lanes in the end, and we've done safety audits on the stage 1, and obviously we've done a safety design review on stage 2, and TAC have been part of the design elements of these lanes. So there's full support from TAC for both stage 1 and stage 2. TAC have given a presentation and been involved in discussion with councils about bike lanes. Every element on a road and a bike lane will always have some level of risk. It's about the mitigation treatments you put in to do that, and we've just done that safety audit of stage 1, which has indicated the speed limit that's involved in it, and the general route and the safety around of it is fine, provided people stay within that speed limit. So from that point of view, I think there's full support from the TAC for these. Driver education remains important. It's also important to allow full analysis of results of incidents and other matters of safety over a 12-month period, and that's what that report will be brought back to Council in regard to stage 1 at the end of the year.
Martin, much appreciated. Any councillors wish to speak? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Everyone knows, everyone in
the
this
microphone,
chamber knows.
please, Councillor Nelson.
It's working.
Yeah, you got to bring it closer to your face.
Everyone in this chamber knows how I feel about the bike lanes in my ward. Other councillors, including Councillor Harwood, have different opinions, and that's fine. That's why we're here tonight. I think, along with Councillor Contell, that we've had a lot of, certainly a barrage of emails, phone calls, and on Facebook and in social media about how dangerous this implementation has been. Yes, there are teething problems, I get that, but when I get emails, the ones that I've had, I'm certainly questioning what's actually happening, and I'd like to pause it, and for reasons that Councillor Contell has brought up. But my main concern is with High Street, that we're going to rip up High Street, and a lot of businesses will go broke. They're barely surviving now, and some businesses have already shut down, and new businesses have gone in. But ripping up High Street for the sake of 5% of the population over the 95% of the population just doesn't make sense to me. Especially right now when businesses are right on the brink of going broke. That's how I feel. I think we should just pause and see how this works. We all want bike lanes. There's no two ways about that, but we need to make sure that we get it right. I don't think we've got it right in some sections. That's okay, we can fix that. But putting them up High Street, ripping up High Street, when businesses are just surviving at the moment, removing all those turning lanes, I'm just looking at High Street now, removing all the turning lanes for all those shops up there that go into Coles. So you won't be able to turn into Coles without stopping all the other traffic. You won't be able to turn into Daniels or KFC or Borough Repairs or where Subway is, where there's about 10 shops in there. You won't be able to turn in there without stopping every other piece of traffic. And that's all for, 5%, 10% of bikes. And risking their businesses because we think that it's good to take money from the TAC. I'd rather not take the money from the TAC, fix the problems that are happening in the CBD, and in 12 months' time when those businesses are recovering, then spend some money, our own money. Everyone wants bike lanes. There's no argument about that. But we need to make sure that they are safe. And the CEO just said it's about risk. Yes, it's about risk. It's about risk to the cyclists. It's about risk to the businesses in High Street. And just put the damn thing in Francis Street. Makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any other councillors to speak? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. I hear the vexatious polls of this debate, but am aware that there's a project that we've decided to implement, and I do hear some of the serious arguments about minority groups and disabled people. I really don't see how some of these problems cannot be overcome. I think we've received assurances from experts that safety issues are well in control. I share the concern of Councillor Nelson about the vulnerability of businesses. I'm sure mitigating actions can be taken there too. I find it quite disappointing that we have been going on and on with this debate. Once we've resolved it ages ago, and it keeps popping up again. This is a procedural motion to accept tender to a resolution that we made quite some time ago. And I think, look, as far as safety and all those other issues, I think they're resolvable, and there's this inherent fear of going forward for some reason. And I find this fear of the future really somewhat disturbing, because our best technical minds have been applied to it externally as well, not just our own officers. And we have come up with a solution which may not be perfect, but is the optimum solution, which can be reviewed and which can be changed if there are weaknesses that we discover in the future. Fear of going forward and doing nothing, retrogressing to a status quo, is not a useful solution in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. With that, I will throw back to Councillor Mansfield, who reserved her right.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Thank you to all my fellow councillors for your contributions to this one. I think the community can see that this continues to be a difficult issue for us, and we were having a discussion amongst ourselves last week about this, and it was pointed out to me that I was probably getting a little bit emotional, and I thought about that and thought, why am I getting emotional about this issue? Because I couldn't understand why we're so focused on the safety issues in these protected bike lanes, but as a council, we actually manage huge amounts of cycling infrastructure. They're called roads, and cyclists currently have to ride on roads, sharing them with cars and cars sharing them with bikes. Sometimes we paint lines on the roads next to parked cars that open their doors, and I am not a confident cyclist. I often get around town with both the kids on the back of my bike, and it's so much less safe on the rest of our cycling infrastructure compared to the protected lanes. Now, it's not to say that the protected lanes are perfect. We've heard a lot of complaints about these lanes, but they are miles safer than anything else. You want to talk about turning out blind corners where there's poor visibility, where a cyclist could get hit. That can happen and it does happen on all the rest of our roads. So I was curious. I thought, well, why does this stir up so much emotion amongst people? And there's actually a phenomenon that happens every place in the world where you build protected bike lanes. It's called bike clash. And I feel That's something everyone should go away and look up, but it isn't, the answer to that is not technical solutions or better bike lanes, and I applaud our organisation for undertaking the safety audits. We need to address every concern that is raised, but it's a community engagement issue, and we need to be listening to the community. We need to be willing to compromise. I think this proposal to revisit option 1 is an example of that compromise. It's something that I, along with a couple of the councillors, pushed for because we recognise that businesses on High Street have been through a difficult period during COVID. Option 1 really minimises the impact on businesses because there's very little construction involved, and it also opens up the opportunity to phase this project and build community understanding and support. I agree with the point that Councillor Maloney made about the education piece that needs to happen, the driver awareness piece that needs to happen. I feel like any funding for these sort of cycling infrastructure projects actually need to come with another pool of funding to support that community engagement and educate driver awareness, cyclist awareness. Cyclists themselves have some responsibility in ensuring that they ride carefully and know how to use this infrastructure. We need to really work on that side of it, and I'd just like to thank the community who have engaged with us on this. But this is an issue that we have the opportunity with stage 2. I think to really look at how we engage with the community and how we ensure that we can get I think broader acceptance for this sort of infrastructure going forward.
Thank you. Thanks, mate. Councillor Harwood to close.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. The bike was on the road before the car, but the point is, as time has gone by, our reliance on the car is greater than ever, and sometimes it's unhealthy and sometimes it works for us. But there's never been more bikes on the road than ever at the moment, and it's growing. The number of cyclists in our community is growing, and we want that to grow. And there's always been people who don't like bikes on the road, and there are bike riders out there that shouldn't be on the road, and there are drivers out there that shouldn't be on the road. I guess one of the greatest faults that we have is that we forget we have to share the road. We get told this often, we get told it in school, we get told it daily when we read about different incidents that occur on the road has to be shared. Whether it's a bus, a truck, a bike, a motorbike, a push bike, a scooter, whatever. There's another discussion of scooters, but quite simply, we have to share the road. It goes back to education. These are all things we've been told time and time again. But I guess it's convenience to forget them sometimes about what the road is there for primarily. It's there for everybody to use. So what's the best infrastructure we can put on the road that makes it safe? In this case, it's separation of bikes and other vehicles. In the High Street proposal, they're not bilateral lanes, they're actually separated lanes on either side of the road, which makes it a distinct difference to what we've seen with stage 1. But I still think, as I said before, I think option 1 will potentially allow us to look at the growth of what that might look like and grow into a 2B. That's a discussion to have. I'm just saying it provides an option. Whether we take it or not, discussion will sort that out. I think we just need to dial back a bit of the hysterics of the conversation and look at the practicalities of it, what's really intended to be achieved, and that is safety on the road and sharing of the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. And with that all spoken, I will put this to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Motion carried.
With respect, would you mind if I call the division?
Division called. All those in favour? All those in favour? Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Mason, Councillor Harwood, Councillor Murray, Councillor Mansfield, Councillor Maloney. All those against? Councillor Nelson, Councillor Aiken, Councillor Quintel.
Thank you.
Could please, Councillor Grisbeck, return to the chamber.
Councillor Harwood.
Item 5, Tender T220024, provision of environmental land and wetland management services. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason, and seconder, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Mason, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Well, the provision of environmental land and wetland management services is, of course, extremely important to us and to our council plan that we do it efficiently. And by using a panel of contractors, we've understood for some time that this is the most efficient way to do it. And our current panel of contractors is due to expire this month, and so we must establish a new panel of contractors. And that's the purpose of this tender. The estimated budget for the delivery of these services is approximately $1.3 million per annum, and having this panel, as I said, provides efficiency and flexibility amongst the group of tenderers. The procurement service administered the open tender process on behalf of the department, and the usual tender evaluation panel was set up and used conventional evaluation criteria. Of 11 tenderers, 9 were recommended, and that we recommend therefore that those 9 tenderers be accepted in this report. I could name them, but in the interest of time I won't. They're there in the report, and I commend the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Maloney, to second.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Mason. It's a simple procedural matter, but I think it's really great to see a lot of Indigenous horticulture focused organisations bidding on these contracts, and it's great to see that we have a process that involves multiple people to contribute towards the beautification of our environment, and especially our wetlands, much needed in these times. So really excited to see what these tenders can bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any other councillors to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried. Item 6, proposed road discontinuance, New Station Estate. Item mover, Councillor Aiken. Seconder, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Look, this is a proposed road discontinuance. It's part of a process that Council's been undertaking for quite a long time. The former Shire of Corio in the 1930s actually created an inappropriate subdivision, and there's 27 lots on that particular road area, and there's actually road reserves as well too. Now, they could never be developed, service access and other things associated with it, and Council has actually been trying to resolve the issue since the 1930s. In fact, the Shire of Corio tried as well too, and they didn't resolve it, and it's a legacy issue that passed on to the City of Greater Geelong. And the response from the City of Greater Geelong was to actually establish a public acquisition overlay of the land. And since 2010, Council has been attempting to buy back each of the lots from the families that exist and still have ownership of that particular site location. What we're attempting to do is consolidate tonight the roads that currently exist in that area. So there are no roads, it's just drive to Melbourne, you actually see that the Melbourne Road runs up the middle of it. There's green grass on one side and there's more green grass on the other side. And what we're attempting to do tonight is discontinue the roads that actually are marked on the planning map and start the process of consolidation of this particular site and assist us with our Geelong Regional Employment Precinct.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Aiken has described that perfectly, so nothing further to add.
Any other councillors to comment? Throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Nothing further to add, Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Item carried. Item number 7, Waterlily Grange, stages 11, 12, 13 and 15, revocation of flood-prone area, design of new lots. Moved Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Harwood. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, this is to remove the flood-prone overlay for the areas both north and south of Whites Road. Not much flooding there from what I've seen in the last 50 years, but nonetheless, we're making that available so that it'll reduce the insurance prices down there in Mount Dunedin. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Nelson, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Nelson to close.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I recently opened a playground down there that was funded by the developer, and it's probably one of the best playgrounds down in Armstrong Creek. So if anyone lives nearby, they need to go down and have a look. Some Indigenous works there with little trickling water that some kids can play on with bells, make music. Really, really good playground that the developer has put in there. It's on McCubbin Drive for those playing at home. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Waterlily Stage 103, revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots. Moved Councillor Harwood, seconded Councillor Maloney. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Again, just an extension of the previous agenda item, removing the revocation of the flood-prone area designation, so the new residents in the area can build safely and confidence that they won't be flooded out. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Howard. I think it's a really important point to note that the works that we do, the groundworks, earthworks, drainage, and the infrastructure that we build on council, many people don't even know we do all this, is crucial to ensure that these 1-in-100-year events don't happen, and certainly don't inundate people and their homes, as has happened in Lismore, New South Wales, and my thoughts go out to those individuals affected by these drastic changes in weather. So it's really great to see that we're on the front foot of this, and also that we're investing more in our council asset renewal in our budgets and hopefully well into the future. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any other councillors to comment? Back to Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 9, Planning Committee Annual Review. Do I have a mover? Councillor Harwood, seconder, Councillor Guntel. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Planning review, the Planning Committee Annual Review, a couple of major points is basically around the terms of reference for the Planning Committee. And quite simply, the last financial year there was 10 applications via the Planning Committee that were heard, and so to further improve the clarity of the Planning Committee, the terms of reference, the following changes are recommended. So that instead of council needing to appoint the chairperson annually, I'll alter that to read the chairperson will be the current portfolio holder, which will be Councillor Grisbeck. Well done, and continue to enjoy that. Other parties delete sections which relate to the processes for hearing from submitters when the meetings are held remotely. It's considered that the normal process can be followed now that remote meetings held via Zoom are sent under the heading processes at meeting. The internal decision-making committee was established to provide oversight or officer recommendations involving a refusal and/or 6 or more objections. And the committee continues to meet meets weekly and considers 56 applications last financial year. So in a nutshell, the review is a process we've gone through, simple changes made, and hopefully the Planning Committee will continue to be a valuable tool for Council and the general community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harwood for explaining the technicalities of the report. I just wanted to make one comment. As we all know, or us councillors know, the planning portfolio and planning aspects of council are rather complex, and even if you've been on council for a long period of time, like some of us have, there's still so many new aspects that are thrown at us as councillors continuously, and there's never the same issue. And so to have some consistency in this portfolio is not only valuable for the community but valuable for us as councillors. So I was actually going to speak to Councillor Harwood to ask if I could put an amendment through to appoint Councillor Grisbeck as the chair until 2024. I won't do that tonight, but I do thank Councillor Grisbeck for taking on the portfolio and Harwood for being the deputy. Is that correct? That's correct, isn't it? Because it is an important role, and we do come to these councillors with requests and questions and guidance, and so more time in the job is better for the community and for us, so fully support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other councillors wish to comment? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Harwood and Councillor Contell. And Councillor Contell, I think we need to talk post this meeting around my term for Planning Chair. It is a difficult portfolio, I must admit, and there are never two of the one same issues, so it is quite varied. And if we look at this report, we considered, or the city considered over 2,100 planning applications in the last financial year, and it was an increase of around sort of 200 to 300 at least on the year before, and that's during COVID. So I can only imagine what this next financial year is going to do in terms of the planning department, and that's, I guess, why there has been substantial investment in additional people within the team. So thank you to Gareth and the team for the planning team. It's never easy, but we get good advice majority of the time from the team. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any councillors wish to comment? Not. I'll throw to Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I was just going to make a couple of quick, observations which were touched on. Planning has changed enormously over a short period of time. Even with this particular council group, we've seen obviously the state government have a much greater say in planning matters, which can be beneficial, but I'm not too sure that they've been all to, I guess, our liking at times. But we have still the Geelong Authority who oversees a number of planning issues and around the CBD area in particular. We've seen the DEL come in via DELP, so the distinctive area of landscapes come in. So there's significant changes to planning in and around the region on the back of significant growth. And I guess if we as a council group can't reflect the community's wishes, we're probably not doing our due diligence on some of the discussions that we have. But as Councillor Grisbeck rightly said, planning is not easy. It's a great opportunity and responsibility that we hold as councillors to be involved, to have the opportunity to speak on behalf of the community and put their view firmly on the table about what they want to see when it comes to change, growth and development as such. And so I think that's a real privilege for us in this space for planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. With that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Item carried. Item number 10, Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Maloney, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. This is a matter regarding adopting a bit of a revision to our Chief Executive Officer employment and remuneration policy. We've recently had a shift in the constitution of that group, and the report is asking to appoint an additional councillor to the committee, which allows us to have a bit more oversight over the employment and the mechanism for, I guess, informing ourselves as to what's going on in the world of this space. And Councillor Jim Mason has been recommended to be appointed for the remainder of the 2-year councillor appointment term through to November 2022, so that we can gain that extra oversight, which delegates a bunch of powers and duties and things like that we can look at in the council agenda. But I'll leave it for others to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Grisbeck.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Any councillors to comment? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Look, I welcome Councillor Mason's interest in this committee, and the reason being is because we're entering a very important 12 months, because in the next 12 months it's actually the final 12 months of the existing CEO's 5-year contract. It is publicly on the record that Martin Cutter started his employment with the City of Greater Geelong on the 4th of June in 2018. He was given a 5-year contract by this particular council, so his current contract does cease in June 2023. So the next 12 months is extremely important for this particular committee. We will have to actually decide what process we wish to engage with in terms of the CEO's either appointment or replacement. And I welcome Councillor Mason's involvement in that committee, because we do have some very important responsibilities to come back to this council group with some recommendations about what we do in terms of a future or current CEO's employment with the City of Greater Geelong. So thank you, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors to comment? Not? I'll throw back to Councillor Maloney to close. Councillor Maloney.
No, nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 11, our Community Plan Quarterly Report, December 2021. Can I have a mover, Councillor Murray? Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Contell. Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This report, the Council has been asked to consider and endorse our Community Plan Quarterly Report from the 1st of October to the 31st of December of last year. We're 12 months into the Community Plan, which was 2021 to 2025. So the document identifies the outcomes and priorities the Council will focus its efforts on during the next 3 years to ensure the social, economic, environmental sustainability of our region. There are 85 actions reported in our community plan, and at the end of December 2021, 68 actions were on track, 9 actions were complete, 2 actions were not started, 4 actions needed improvement, and 2 actions were off track due to COVID. As the organisation and region face considerable environmental challenges, the plan outlines the city's priorities in addressing the issues, including climate change, population growth, threats to local biodiversity. Just to go through some of the achievements during this quarter, they include the implementation of the Best Start initiative, supporting families and caregivers to provide the best possible environment, experience and care for children from birth to age 8 in its efforts to help close the gaps, priority connections for shared trails in the Ballerina and Windermere wards. Council's working with the Wyndham City Council and the community and the state government to set the future direction for land use and development between Lara and Werribee through the Avalon Corridor Strategy. And Council is on track to implement the city's digital modernisation project to improve digital capability. And when I said that the 4 actions need improvement, I just wanted to highlight what they were. That's review the multicultural action plan, progress the business case for improvement and transformation of the 3 of the city's cultural venues, the Potato Shed, National Wool Museum and Geelong Gallery, finalise a long-term settlement boundary for urban Geelong, and provide publicly accessible external urban space around the site of the proposed Geelong Convention and Exhibition Centre, which is safe, attractive and designed considering the needs of the people of all ages, abilities and backgrounds. So all in all, a pretty good report, and thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Mohi. Councillor Contell, have you seen anything?
Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Councillor Murray has done a good job explaining the report. We understand that it's a quarterly status report from the 1st of October till the 31st of December. And as Councillor Murray has already articulated, there are quite a number of positives. It is a good report. There's been a lot of positive initiatives that have been either completed or are on track, and it's good to see that things such as the community feeling welcome and safe in the suburbs and our CBD is something that we've been working on. Also, the dog park initiatives, I think we're seeing a more and more need for those and more requests for that type of work. And of course, I couldn't let a time go past without recognising the implementation of a second hour of free 2p on-street parking, which was delivered. So that's great. However, there are also some initiatives that either haven't been started or are off track, as Councillor Murray has suggested. One that's really topical, and it does concern me given some of the discussions we had about the bike lanes today, and to refer back to Councillor Mason, that we continue to talk about them, then it's extremely important that we deliver on engaging with key stakeholders on the development of the integrated transport plan to improve integration of all modes of transport, including active transport. That is one initiative that we haven't started. And this council here knows that we've been talking about that for a long period of time, notwithstanding the discussions we've been having on bike lanes. We've been talking a lot about the congestion in the CBD. We've been talking about trucks in Ryrie Street. We've been talking about the east-west link between the Bellarine and Geelong. We've been talking about public transport and whether buses should be in Moorabool Street or not. I know some of these things are state issues, but unless we have our integrated transport network plan up, or at least starting to work on it, we probably are always going to be at loggerheads on issues like the bike lanes, because we are, in some cases, putting the cart before the horse. We don't have the integrated bike strategy, and so as such, we're making decisions on the run. So whilst I applaud all the work that's been done, I think it's a failure, and it's on our watch. It's a failure that we haven't started this one, and we really should talk about that amongst ourselves in council any time, and talk to our officers and the CEO to get some action on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any councillors to comment? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Contell. I agree. We've got a draft road safety strategy which should look at all of those things, hopefully coming back to us very, very soon. A couple of things I wanted to call out was the Future Ways of Working program within the city. There are several activities, including, revamping the business planning cycle process, and I think we can all see the benefits already coming from that. And in talking about the workplace as in the organisation, I think a dedicated appointment of a role to help develop our first gender equity action plan. The GEAP, is a lot of people are referring to it, will build on our diversity and inclusion commitment and our commitment to healthy and inclusive culture. I think we're well on our way to becoming an organisation which has an employee value proposition which makes people want to come and work at the city. So I appreciate there are many things, but there's just two I wanted to call out.
Councillor Grisbeck. Any councillors? Go back to Councillor Maloney to close.
That might be.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
You can go, Councillor Maloney, if you want. No. Thanks to those councillors for the comments. I was looking at the officers while Councillor Quintel was talking about the integrated transport plan, because I'm of belief that it may have been started, but they all had their heads down, so there was no positive vibe coming from them. So I agree. It's something we've spoken about relentlessly in our time, so it'd be great to see that started. I know there's work in the G21 area in relation to that, so hopefully we'll pick that up as well. So, a challenging time for any form of government over the last couple of years, and this is only a quarterly report, of course, but it certainly is a good report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Item 12, Sustainability Performance Report 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor Maloney, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Maloney, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. I'd really like to acknowledge the immense body of work that's gone into this Sustainability Performance Report. It really shows that Council have taken a committed effort towards protecting our environment and looking into things like social equity and community wellbeing, which are incredibly important now more than ever, I would say, and also really being transparent about what we're doing, engaging with our community. And the report has a whole bunch of information that you might want to check out. There's a whole bunch of actions, indicators and targets that we've set and that we're also measuring against. So as Councillor Murray rightly mentioned, we have a whole bunch of actions in our community plan, and some of those are reflected in the Sustainability Performance Report. So in that report, of the 66 actions were reviewed, so we've got a big long checklist of things we've got to do and things we've got to check off, and 46 of those were on track and 5 were deemed off track. So that's interesting to see, but we're at least making some progress. So hopefully as we get more used to this reporting process and the mechanisms that we use, which are new to Council, it will be really great to see the community see a confluence of all of our actions, hopefully making a difference visually and maybe also to your hip pocket as well, as we try and encourage food security and sovereignty and also reduce our emissions. So you might see a few things visibly. You might see our green fleet scooting around, helping to maintain our businesses. We've got, and our buildings, we've got some electric charged mowers, which I'd be really keen to have a scoot around on if anyone's keen for that. We've also provided $1 million in funding for Geelong food relief at this crucial point in time where we've had the pandemic hitting people in their households, especially with respect to their jobs. So it's really great to see this report. It's incredibly detailed. A lot of work has gone into it, and it's been well informed by our Sustainability Advisory Committee. But I'll leave this to open to the others to comment on, and I'll close later on. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Maloney, for providing a great overview of this report and for your work on the Sustainability Advisory Committee as well, and to all the members of that committee for the work that you do. As Councillor Maloney said, this is a very rich and detailed report, and it really dovetails nicely, I think, with our council plan that we've just, the report that we've just heard previously. It highlights a range of actions that we're taking across the organisation in all different areas, not just environmental sustainability, but sustainability in everything that we do. And I think part of this report is really gathering together a lot of the work that we're probably already doing, but putting it into a framework that we can, and viewing it through a lens of sustainability and getting us thinking about what does this look like now, and also how does it, what does it look like in the future? How do we continue to provide, whether it be a service, or maintain infrastructure, or enhance or support our environment in the longer term. There are some real achievements here, and I think they should be celebrated. I think the areas where we're lacking are probably in some ways not surprising. They're areas that are major challenges for us as a council, and they have been for a long time. We've mentioned already transport and getting mode shift in transport. We are lacking some more up-to-date data on that, but I don't imagine there's been a significant shift in the percentages that are presented there. And absolutely, we need to have an integrated transport plan, and that needs to be supported by all levels of government looking at different forms of transport so we can be more sustainable going forward. It's not something that's going to be easily fixed. It may not have a green mark next to it for a long time. It'll take us a long time to shift those things. But it's important that we continue to look at it and report against it. Additionally, in the waste area, it's a really challenging space, and we're, by continuing to report against these sustainability measures around waste, although the targets may be challenging to achieve, it does provide a mechanism for us to continue to be accountable to the community and to ourselves. So thank you to everyone who participated in this one, and I look forward to continuing to see our database and our measures evolve so we can continue to reflect on our performance across the organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Any other councillors care to comment? No, I'll throw it back to Councillor Maloney to close.
Thank you, and thanks so much, Councillor Mansfield, for your comments. And also, I want to echo the sentiments of myself and also the sentiments of Councillor Contell earlier about a transport system and all the lack thereof. We've been probably a broken record about that and how crucial that is as a part of a way to get our community active and moving around a beautiful city, especially with respect to the activation of our CBD and all the people that wish to move into it by some low-cost mechanism or low carbon emission mechanism. I think the council in this report and its commitment and initiatives to create a more sustainable future for Geelong has taken a really strong leadership position with respect to sustainability that might not have already or previously. And look, we had a huge constituency of folks in the council chambers tonight talking about what's happening with the environment and their concerns. And every single councillor that I have had the pleasure to work with over this last year and a bit has educated themselves as to what's going on. And I can't think of anything better to be happening than for this to be on the table and talked about rather than something that just passes us by. So this report indicates a huge flavour of leadership in this area, and whether we all agree on it or not, at least we're open to it and we're completely educated as to the different impacts of our decision making. So I really congratulate everyone for jumping on board, even throwing their hat in the ring and 2 cents and all of that. And I wish I could say the same for other levels of government, which have frankly been feckless in representing Geelong with respect to encouraging transport and helping us to get where we need to be in enabling low carbon emissions and improvements to our public transport, which has been a bit of a shambolic endeavour in our town. But at least we're strong in our advocacy for that, and I hope that continues in the future, considering there's a state election coming up. So knock knock, hope you're listening. Thanks so much, and I really commend this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The item carries. Alright, that moves us into Section C. Notices of motion, which there are none, so into Section D. Of informal meetings of councillors. Can we have a mover? Councillor Mohi, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Harwood. Motion, all those in favour? Sorry.
Deputy Mayor, might I just interrupt just quickly? In relation to the informal meeting of councillors, it has the councillors that are attending. It doesn't actually note if there are apologies, and I wonder if that's something the officers could take on board, get back to me whether that's an opportunity to include in that table, because it doesn't actually say if they were just absent or they'd sent an apology. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Noted. With that, put it to vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Can I please have a mover for planning delegations? Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Howard. Thank you. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Section F, confidential. The Regional Renewable Organics Network Waste Supply Agreement. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to put this into confidential? Moved Councillor Aiken, seconded Councillor Maloney. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. We're now to consider the remaining agenda items in our confidential section of the meeting. So with that, can I please have a mover and a seconder to move this meeting into the confidential area? Councillor Mason, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Grisbeck. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. I would like to thank everybody, both virtual and in person, with our gallery this evening, for your participation tonight and for sticking to us through our technical difficulties. It is certainly appreciated. Thank you and good night.
To be applauded.
Absolutely.